What began as a routine interview quickly turned into a moment no one expected. Within minutes, Obama was saying things about Trump that few had ever dared to say openly, and the reaction across America proved the truth still carries weight. The white stage was bright, the cameras unrelenting, and the air so tense it felt like the whole country was holding its breath. Millions tuned in to watch Barack Obama's high-profile appearance, but no one was prepared for what he would reveal. At the PBS studio in Boston, veteran journalist Karen Delaney wasted no time. Leaning forward, she asked directly, "Mr. President, what are your honest thoughts on Donald Trump and his role in American politics today?" The audience stirred. Gasps, whispers, nervous glances. Obama sat calm, hands folded, giving his familiar polite smile. For years, he had stayed measured and restrained, avoiding the fight no matter how deep it got. But this time was different. You could sense it in the silence that followed. Leaning slightly into the microphone, his voice steady and low, he said, "I've been quiet for a long time, but there are things the American people deserve to know about Donald Trump. Things that go beyond politics. Out of respect for the office, I've kept them to myself. But respect has to go both ways." A ripple went through the crowd. Karen blinked, caught off guard. "Are you saying there are things about Trump's behavior in office the public hasn't heard?" she pressed. Without pause, Obama replied, "That's exactly what I'm saying." The studio buzzed instantly, whispers rising, phones lighting up, people recording. Everyone knew this wasn't just another interview. History was unfolding. In real time, a young man in the second row, Red Sox cap pulled low, whispered to his friend, "This is it. He's about to go in." Obama drew a steady breath, his tone calm, but edged with a sharpness no one had heard before. "Politics can be rough. We all know that," he said. "But when a leader puts personal gain above the nation's security, when private deals matter more than public trust, democracy itself is at risk." And Donald Trump did that, again and again. The words cut deep. Karen shifted her glasses, struggling to stay composed. "Can you be specific?" she asked carefully. Obama turned straight to the camera, his voice now aimed at millions watching from living rooms across the country. "Here's one example," he said. "There was a late-night phone call I was briefed on. He wasn't speaking as the President of the United States, but as a businessman protecting his brand. That's all I'll say for now." The room grew, heavier. Gasps spread, and a woman in the front row covered her mouth. Karen pressed further. "Are you saying Donald Trump put personal business ahead of national interests?" Obama tilted his head slightly. "I'm saying Americans should ask themselves why certain decisions were made. Decisions that had nothing to do with public service and everything to do with self-interest." The audience broke into applause, loud and unrestrained. It wasn't polite. It was raw frustration pouring out. The sound rolled through the studio as Obama sat still, waiting for it to fade, his face unreadable. Behind the cameras, producers scrambled, barking into headsets and waving frantically at teleprompters. They knew the moment this aired, the country would erupt. But Obama stayed composed, hands folded, his voice steady once more. "This isn't about me," he said. "And it isn't just about Trump. This is about what we're willing to accept as a people," Obama said evenly. We want a leader who treats the Oval Office like a bargaining chip, or one who respects it as the responsibility it was meant to be." His words stung more than any insult. He wasn't mocking Trump. He wasn't raising his voice. He was challenging America to choose. The camera cut to Karen, who looked shaken as she tried to steady herself. "Mr. President, I think you've just opened the door to something very serious. Are you prepared to say more?" Obama gave the faintest smile. "We'll see how much truth the American people are ready for tonight." The audience erupted again, louder this time, and even Karen looked uneasy. Whispers, gasps, and scattered applause rippled through the studio before she finally regained control. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's allow President Obama to continue." The noise subsided, but the tension lingered. What stood out wasn't only his words, but his calm presence. Upright, relaxed, collected, so different from the chaos around him. Karen leaned in. "When you say the Oval Office was treated like a bargaining chip, people will demand clarity. Can you expand?" Obama sat back slightly, unshaken. "Let me put it this way. When I was in office, I didn't always agree with my advisors. I made mistakes like any human being. But the duty was always to the country first. With Donald Trump, too often it wasn't. It was about his empire, his image, his survival. The silence that followed was heavy, like everyone knew a line had just been crossed." Karen shuffled her notes, off balance, and tried another angle. "Some will say this is just political rivalry, that you're settling old scores. How do you respond?" "I've moved on," Obama replied without hesitation. "I don't need to run against Donald Trump anymore. But America is still living with the consequences of his choices. That's what concerns me." His voice stayed calm, but the weight of his words hit like thunder. In the third row, a woman whispered to her husband, "He sounds like he's been holding this in for years." Obama adjusted his tie, an easy, almost casual gesture. But nothing about what he was saying was casual. When you're commander-in-chief, you hear things the public never will. You see how government works, the levers of power, and sometimes how those levers are pulled for reasons that have nothing to do with protecting the American people. That's when you realize just how fragile the system really is. Karen cut in quickly. "Are you suggesting Donald Trump endangered national security?" Obama paused, eyes on her, then on the camera. "I'm saying that when personal interest drives decisions in the White House, the country is less safe. Period." The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, applause, phones raised to capture the moment. A student whispered, "He's dismantling him live." Across the studio, faces showed shock, anger, disbelief, yet no one looked away. In the control booth, producers argued in frantic whispers, cut to break or let it run. No one dared stop what was unfolding. Obama stayed composed, steady. "This isn't about partisanship," he said. "It's about truth, and truth doesn't care about party lines." Karen's voice dropped, cautious. "Then what do you want the American people to do with this truth?" "They need to remember," Obama said, looking from her to the crowd, "that democracy doesn't survive on loyalty to one man. It survives on loyalty to the Constitution, to the people, to the truth. Forget that, and we lose everything." The room shifted. It didn't feel like a talk show anymore. It felt bigger than politics, bigger than ratings. A teenager whispered, "This feels like history class, but live." His mother squeezed his shoulder and whispered back, "This is history." Karen pushed again, firmer now. "Critics will ask why you didn't warn people sooner. You had 8 years in office." Obama's voice softened, but the impact was sharper. "Because I believed the office itself would shape the man. I believed the weight of responsibility would change him. I was wrong." The gasp that followed was louder, heavier. For the first time, Obama admitted misjudgment, and it carried a weight no pundit ever could. Karen pressed, "And now? Has he changed?" Obama shook his head slowly. "Power only made him more desperate, and that's dangerous." The applause that followed was raw, almost cathartic, like millions at home were clapping through the audience. Obama let it wash over him, then leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "The truth always comes out. And when the truth does come out," Obama said, "the real question is, what do we do with it?" The camera stayed locked on his face. The room was silent, but he hadn't even dropped the real bombshell yet. Karen, sensing the tension building, leaned in carefully. Mr. President, you've spoken about personal interests and risky decisions. Can you give us one clear example? Something Americans would understand? Obama didn't flinch. Hands clasped, he leaned forward. All right, let me share something the public never fully heard. Donald Trump pushed for certain international deals that appeared to be about trade and diplomacy. But behind closed doors, he was asking how those same deals could benefit his own businesses. Gasps filled the studio. Karen straightened in her chair. Are you saying he blurred the line between being president and being a businessman? Obama's eyes didn't move. I'm not saying he blurred the line. I'm saying there was no line. I sat in briefings where staff struggled to separate policies meant for the country from policies meant for Donald Trump. Too often, they weren't the same. The silence was heavy. A woman whispered, "Oh my God, he's actually saying it." Out loud. Karen pressed again. Can you give a concrete example of this conflict of interest? Obama hesitated briefly, then spoke. I'll put it this way. When military assets were discussed for certain regions, the question wasn't only about security. It was also about where Trump properties were located. That should tell you everything. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, murmurs, outrage. Some clapped in disbelief. Others shook their heads. Karen's face went pale. Mr. President, you're suggesting American military presence abroad was influenced by Trump's business interests? Obama looked directly into the camera. I'm not suggesting, I'm saying. The studio exploded, not just applause, but a roar. People half rose from their seats. Phones shot into the air, recording what they knew was history. Behind the glass, producers waved frantically, one mouthing, "This is a bombshell." Karen tried to steady herself. Mr. President, this is an extraordinary claim. Why haven't we heard this before? Obama's tone stayed even. Because much of it was buried. Reports watered down. Advisors silenced. The people meant to protect the presidency ended up protecting the man instead. That's not what the Constitution was written for. From the audience, a man muttered loudly. This is corruption. Straight-up corruption. His words drew nods across the room. Karen leaned forward. If this is true, and you're saying it is, what does it mean for the country now? Obama exhaled slowly, his expression grave. It means America has to decide whether it values truth over convenience. Because the easy thing is to look away, to pretend it doesn't matter. But if we do that, we tell every future leader that personal gain comes before national duty. And that isn't just dangerous, it's deadly to democracy. The tension in the room was suffocating. The cameras zoomed in, catching the intensity in Obama's eyes. From the back row, a college student whispered, "This feels bigger than Watergate." Karen's voice was cautious. Do you believe Donald Trump will respond to this? Obama gave a faint, knowing smile. I don't just believe it. I guarantee it. And he'll respond the only way he knows how. Loudly, angrily, and without ever addressing the truth. That's always been his playbook. The audience chuckled nervously, some clapping, others murmuring agreement. The air felt electric, like the interview had stopped being television and turned into something larger, a national reckoning. Karen turned to the camera, visibly shaken. We are witnessing a moment unlike any in modern political history. President Obama, are there more secrets you're prepared to share tonight? Leaning back, hands resting on the chair, Obama answered calmly, There are, but the truth has to come out piece by piece. All at once, it would be too much for people to take in. Applause thundered through the studio, the weight of his words rippling outward. Viewers at home could feel it too. The shift, the gravity, the sense that something monumental had just happened. But the real storm was only beginning. Outside the studio, social media ignited instantly. In living rooms, bars, and college dorms, people grabbed their phones, recording and posting clips in real time. Within minutes, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok were flooded. One of the first viral posts came from a student in Madison, Wisconsin. She filmed her TV screen with the caption, "Obama just said Trump put business over national security." Live. This is insane. It hit 100,000 views in minutes, millions by nightfall. Hashtags exploded. Obama bombshell, Chad or Trump's secrets. Truth on live TV. Reactions poured in across the country. In a St. Louis diner, factory workers crowded around a television demanding, "Play that back." A waitress in a grease-stained apron shook her head. If that's true, we've all been played for fools. In an Austin college dorm, students packed the common room. One paced the floor, hands on his head. "No way he just said that." Another yelled, "He didn't just say it, he owned it. This is receipts." Even in Billings, Montana, bar patrons leaned over their beers as the local news cut in. An old rancher muttered, "Never thought I'd see a president call another out like that. Live on TV." Online, the shock only grew. Influencers dissected the clip in real time, some with serious breakdowns, others with memes spreading like wildfire. One viral TikTok showed Obama calmly sipping water afterward, captioned, "This man just nuked Trump without raising his voice." News outlets scrambled. CNN ran the headline, "Obama drops bombshell allegations in live interview." Fox News countered, with banners framing it as partisan slander. Obama targets Trump again. MSNBC leaned into the spectacle. The night everything changed. For everyday Americans, though, it felt like more than politics. For many, it felt like vindication, confirmation of suspicions they had carried for years. In Minneapolis, a nurse posted online, "I've worked through chaos these past few years, but hearing Obama finally say what we all suspected, I'm shaking." A teacher in Tucson wrote on Facebook, "I hope my students see this. This is how history is made. Truth on display without spin." The digital storm was unstoppable. Celebrities joined in too. A Hollywood actor tweeted, "Obama with the mic drop of the decade. Calm, surgical, devastating." A well-known musician added, "This is the interview they'll study 20 years from now." But while social media buzzed with celebration and debate, Mar-a-Lago reportedly descended into chaos. Staff scrambled as phones rang non-stop with allies and reporters demanding Trump's reaction. Sources leaked that he had already seen the clip, pacing furiously, phone in hand, typing and deleting post after post. Finally, his account erupted. "Total lies by failed Obama. Disgraceful. I did more for this country than anyone in history." It didn't stop there. Over the next half hour, he fired off a storm of all-caps rants, calling Obama a fraud, the worst president ever, and accusing the media of staging the interview. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Side by side, Obama's calm delivery played against Trump's frantic, angry posts. The split screen told its own story. Back at PBS, producers' phones buzzed non-stop as major networks begged for permission to replay the footage. One muttered, half joking, "We just broke the internet." Karen Delaney, sitting across from Obama, didn't yet realize how massive the moment had become outside the studio. Glancing at the teleprompter, she steadied. Her voice, "Mr. President, social media is already exploding. Your words are everywhere." Obama gave a faint smile. "That doesn't surprise me. The truth travels fast." The audience chuckled softly, but the energy in the room was electric. Everyone knew this wasn't just about one revelation. It was about the floodgates opening. Across America, people stayed glued to their screens. Big cities, small towns, supporters and critics alike. They all sensed this was only the beginning. And what truly set the firestorm ablaze wasn't just Obama's words. It was Trump's furious response from Mar-a-Lago. That night, the chandelier-lit dining room was supposed to be quiet after a fundraiser. Only a few staff remained with Trump, but calm didn't last. One aide later described him glued to the television, jaw tight, remote in one hand, phone in the other. The screen replayed Obama's words on loop. There was no line for him. Each repetition hit like a hammer. He can't say that about me, Trump shouted, slamming the remote onto the table. Plates rattled as staff flinched. Storming. To the window, he pulled out his phone and within seconds blasted his first post in all caps. Obama is a liar. Total disgrace. Worst president ever. Made America weak. Trump's post went viral instantly. Screenshots of his meltdown spread, just as fast as Obama's calm delivery. On TikTok, split-screen videos compared Obama's steady expression with Trump's frantic typing. One caption read, "Spot the difference." Inside Mar-a-Lago, aides scrambled. Some urged caution. "Sir, maybe we should wait to release a formal statement. People are already reacting." Trump cut them off. "I don't wait. Nobody waits on me. I respond when I want." Seconds later, another post appeared. "Total witch hunt. Obama just jealous because he can't pull crowds like me." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Obama hadn't shouted, hadn't insulted. He had simply spoken. Yet Trump's response was loud, frantic, almost unhinged by comparison. Cable news jumped on it immediately. On CNN, anchors read his tweets aloud with disbelief. On Fox News, pundits scrambled to spin the meltdown as strength, claiming he was defending himself in real time. But the split-screen coverage, Obama calm, Trump raging, was devastating. Across the country, Americans watched the meltdown play out on their phones. In a sports bar in Columbus, Ohio, the bartender turned up the TV as Trump's posts scrolled across the screen. One patron laughed bitterly. He's proving Obama right without even realizing it. In a grocery checkout line in Reno, Nevada, two women scrolled side by side. One shook her head. "I didn't even vote for Obama, but tonight he looks like a leader. Trump looks like a teenager on Snapchat." Even Republican lawmakers exchanged nervous texts. Privately, some admitted the contrast was brutal. A leaked message from a senator read, "We can't defend this. He looks unstable." Back at PBS, Karen Delaney received a note from her producer. In bold letters, "Trump is melting down on Twitter." She swallowed hard, glanced at Obama, then shared it aloud. "Mr. President, I've just been told that former President Trump is reacting right now on social media. He's calling your statements lies. He's calling you jealous. Do you want to respond?" Obama didn't flinch. Folding his hands, he gave a small nod. "That's his choice. He can shout all he wants, but shouting doesn't change the truth." The audience broke into applause, some laughing at the quiet jab. Karen pressed further. "Do you think his response proves your point?" Obama met her eyes. "I think his response speaks for itself." That single line ricocheted across the internet. Memes appeared within minutes. Obama's calm face side by side with Trump's frantic typing, captioned simply, "Speaks for itself." At Mar-a-Lago, Trump raged. "We need airtime. Call Fox. Call anybody. I want a camera in front of me tonight." His voice echoed through the halls, sharp enough for kitchen staff to hear. But networks hesitated. Producers debated whether giving him live coverage would be reckless, knowing an unchecked rant could spiral further. One NBC executive muttered, "Why give him more fuel? He's already burning himself." By midnight, Trump had posted nearly 30 times, each one angrier, less coherent, each one mocked, dissected, and contrasted online with Obama's steady composure. The story was writing itself, and for once, Trump wasn't in control. Back at PBS, Karen turned to Obama. "Mr. President, you've made serious claims tonight, things no one expected. Do you believe the American people are ready for more?" Obama leaned back, calm as ever. "The people deserve more, and I intend to give it to them." The audience erupted. Cheers, people rising to their feet. It no longer felt like an interview. It felt like a reckoning. When the cameras returned from commercial break, the atmosphere had shifted. The audience wasn't just listening, they were bracing. Karen shuffled her notes nervously, though she knew they no longer mattered. "Mr. President," she began, "before the break, you said the American people deserve more. What did you mean by that?" Obama straightened, speaking with deliberate rhythm. "I meant exactly that. There are more truths people need to hear. And some of them," he paused, "are harder to process than what I've already said." A ripple went through the crowd. Phones lifted again. Someone whispered, "Here we go." Karen leaned forward. "Can you give us an example?" Obama's gaze moved from her to the audience, then to the camera. There were times during Trump's presidency when classified information was compromised, not just through negligence, but through recklessness. Gasps broke out instantly. Karen blinked. "Are you suggesting he mishandled classified intelligence?" Obama's voice dropped lower, more grave. "I'm saying he treated it casually, like gossip. Briefings meant only for the highest levels of government somehow found their way into conversations with people who had no business hearing them. Some of those people were foreign nationals." The studio erupted in shocked murmurs. A man in the fourth row muttered, "That's treasonous." Karen's pen shook as she tried to keep pace. "Can you tell us more about these situations?" Obama paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I'll say this. I sat in rooms where intelligence officials warned us about leaks. They traced them back to conversations Trump had, sometimes careless, sometimes deliberate, with people who weren't vetted, weren't cleared, and weren't loyal to this country. And the only question anyone could ask was why." The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy with dread. Karen's voice cracked. "Are you saying Donald Trump endangered American lives by sharing classified information?" Obama didn't hesitate. "Yes." The word struck like a thunderclap. The audience gasped, some covering their mouths. A young man shouted, "This is insane," while another whispered, "This is bigger than Watergate, way bigger." Karen struggled to form her next question. "Why hasn't this come out before?" Obama leaned forward, voice calm but cutting. "Because too many in power were afraid of what it would mean. They worried about fallout, about division, about protecting themselves. But the truth can't stay buried forever. Eventually, it comes out." This time the applause was different. Not explosive, but a steady rumble of agreement. It was the sound of people realizing the ground had shifted. In living rooms across America, reactions echoed the studio. In Omaha, a father turned to his teenage daughter and said, "Remember this moment. One day you'll tell your kids about it." In Phoenix, a group of nurses on a night shift huddled around the break room TV. One shook her head. "We risked our lives during a pandemic, and he was out here risking the whole country." On Twitter, hashtags multiplied. Chuck classified chaos. Obama reveals. Bigger than Watergate. Back in the studio, Karen pressed, her voice quieter now. "Mr. President, do you believe Donald Trump could face consequences for what you've just described?" Obama exhaled. "That's not for me to decide. That's for the people and for the justice system, if it has the courage. But I'll say this, no one is above the law, not even a former president." The crowd erupted, many rising to their feet. It no longer felt like a studio audience. It felt like a rallying cry. Karen shook her head slightly, still stunned. "Mr. President, do you worry about the backlash? About how Trump will respond?" Obama gave a faint, almost weary smile. "He'll respond the way he always does, with anger, with insults, with distractions. But shouting doesn't change facts, and Americans have a choice. Do they want leaders who treat the presidency like a stage, or like a responsibility?" The applause came again, sharper, louder, echoing through the studio. At that same moment, Trump was reportedly on the phone with allies, demanding airtime, raging that Obama was lying. Staffers leaked that his voice carried down the halls. "He can't do this to me. I need a camera, now." While Trump's fury spread through Mar-a-Lago, Obama's quiet words carried across the nation, like a steady drumbeat of truth. But the real impact wasn't just in applause or trending hashtags. It was in how ordinary Americans started talking about it the next morning. In diners, classrooms, barbershops. By sunrise, the country wasn't the same. News outlets replayed Obama's words on a loop, panels dissecting every phrase. But what mattered more was how people outside Washington were responding. In Toledo, Ohio, at a small diner off the highway, the morning rush turned into an impromptu debate. A waitress froze mid-step with a coffee pot in hand, as the television replayed Obama's clip. I'm saying he treated it casually, like gossip. At the counter, a truck driver slammed his mug down. If that's true, then our troops were put at risk. That's not politics, that's betrayal. A retired teacher sitting nearby nodded slowly. I've disagreed with presidents before, a man said at a diner in Omaha, but I never worried they'd hand out secrets like candy. In Los Angeles, college students gathered outside a library, phones buzzing with clips. One young woman showed her friend a TikTok split screen. Obama calm on one side, Trump's all-caps tweets flashing on the other. The caption read, "Calm vs. chaos. Who do you trust?" It had 6 million views in under 12 hours. Her friend shook his head. This is the first time people my age are actually paying attention. It's everywhere. Across the Midwest, barbershops turned into political forums. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the hum of clippers was drowned out by two men arguing. "I don't care what Obama says, Trump's still my guy," one insisted. The barber, scissors in hand, shot back, "You're missing the point. This isn't about who you like. It's about trusting someone with the keys to the kingdom." Secrets aren't poker chips. Even classrooms weren't untouched. In a Salt Lake City high school, a history teacher played the clip for her students. "What does this mean for democracy?" she asked. A student raised his hand. "It means the truth always comes out, and people in power should never think they're untouchable." The teacher nodded, eyes heavy. That's the lesson. Meanwhile, social media magnified every reaction. Facebook feeds filled with family arguments. Twitter Spaces drew tens of thousands into late-night debates. TikTok stitched reactions from soldiers, lawyers, even pastors. One viral clip came from a Marine, veteran in Kansas City. "I served overseas. If Obama's right, if classified info leaked to people who shouldn't have had it, then Trump put me and my brothers in danger. That's not left or right. That's life and death." The video exploded in views, sparking comments like, "Finally, someone saying what we all feel." Even the financial world stirred. Analysts speculated that Obama's claims could shake global relations. A Dallas anchor put it bluntly, "This fallout isn't just political. It could reshape how allies view the United States." But the most telling reactions came in private. Families around kitchen tables, co-workers at lunch, neighbors leaning over fences, all asking the same question. "Did you see what Obama said last night?" Trump's late-night tweets only worsened. The contrast. Screenshots of his 2 a.m. rant. Total witch hunt. Obama jealous, circulated widely. The side-by-side was brutal. Obama composed, Trump unraveling. In Portland, a young mother at Starbucks shook her head. "I don't even like politics," she told the barista. "But this feels like common sense. One man's calm, the other's throwing tantrums. Who do you think looks credible?" The barista laughed. "Not the one with 30 tweets before breakfast." Even lifelong conservatives began to crack. In Tulsa, a man admitted to his friend over lunch, "I still don't like Obama's policies, but last night he looked like a statesman. Trump looked desperate." That sentiment, hesitant, conflicted, but real, was repeated across the nation. For the first time in years, the conversation wasn't just about loyalty to a man, but about responsibility to the truth. Obama seemed to sense the shift. The next morning in Cambridge, cameras caught a woman clasping his hand in a bookstore, whispering, "Thank you for saying it out loud." The clip only fueled the sense that something historic was happening. While ordinary Americans wrestled with Obama's words, Trump was preparing to escalate. If people thought his late-night tirade was the peak, they were wrong. By afternoon, Mar-a-Lago had become a war room. Phones rang non-stop. Advisors shuffled in and out with stacks of headlines, trending hashtags, TV ratings, all dominated by Obama. Trump sat at the head of a long table, red tie draped over his shoulder, arms flailing. "Get Fox on the phone. Get Newsmax. I want airtime tonight. No, this afternoon. We're not waiting." His voice boomed down the hall. One aide hesitated. "Sir, they're hesitant. Some think a written statement might be better." Trump slammed his fist on the table, rattling glasses. "Written statement? Nobody reads. I need cameras. I need to be live." Meanwhile, Obama's interview clips had already been viewed tens of millions of times. Hashtags trended. Late night. Comedians roasted Trump's meltdown, while talk shows praised Obama's composure. Pressure mounted until Trump's team scrambled to secure him a slot. Not on TV, but phoning into a conservative radio show in Tampa. The host greeted him warmly. "Mr. President, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you've seen what President Obama said last night. How do you respond?" Trump wasted no time. "It's all lies. Total lies. Obama's jealous. Folks, he was the worst president we ever had. Weak, pathetic," Trump fumed during his radio call-in. "Everyone knows it. He just wants to stay relevant because he can't stand that I had bigger rallies, bigger crowds, bigger success. I rebuilt the economy. I made America great again. He destroyed it." His words came fast, furious, like a fire hose of grievances. But the more he ranted, the sharper the contrast became. Obama's calm, measured sentences versus Trump's frantic monologue. Clips of the interview spread quickly. One chaotic moment where Trump shouted, "Jealousy, pure jealousy," 3 times in a row, turning into an instant meme. Someone spliced it with Obama's quiet line, "The truth speaks for itself." The internet did the rest. Behind the scenes, Trump began calling Republican lawmakers one by one, demanding loyalty and public defense. Some complied with half-hearted tweets. Others stayed silent, fearing the backlash of being tied to a spiraling PR disaster. That night, reporters camped outside Mar-a-Lago. When Trump finally appeared, he looked flustered but defiant. "Obama is lying. He's making it all up. Nobody knows more about national security than me. Nobody. I kept America safe. We had the best economy, the best everything. He's smearing me because he knows I'll win again." A reporter shouted, "Do you deny discussing classified information with foreign nationals?" Trump's face reddened. "Fake news. I never said that. People are lying. Obama should be investigated. He's the one who should be investigated." The clip aired everywhere. Instead of clarifying, Trump looked defensive, desperate. In homes, across America, viewers compared his outbursts to Obama's steady delivery. "He sounds guilty," a father in Des Moines muttered. His teenage son nodded. And Obama didn't even raise his voice. Even conservatives started to peel away. A Republican strategist admitted privately, "He's losing the plot." Obama baited him, and he took it. Hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, Obama stayed silent. No tweets, no statements, just stillness, while Trump's chaos filled the airwaves. The silence itself became powerful. By Saturday night, Trump tried to seize back control, announcing a special press event at Mar-a-Lago. Reporters rushed in, unsure if it would be a rally-style rant or a formal response. Flanked by flags, Trump swung wildly between shouting and pleading. "I'm the most transparent president in history. Nobody's been more honest than me. Obama's comments are disgraceful. We're going to sue. We're looking at legal action. Believe me." The spectacle didn't restore confidence. If anything, it deepened the sense that Trump was cornered, lashing out in every direction. One CNN analyst put it bluntly: Obama controlled the narrative with 20 words. Trump lost control with 200. By Sunday, the storm still raged. Trump's press event replayed non-stop on TV. Late-night shows mocked his rants, while millions of Americans debated Obama's revelations all weekend. And then Obama broke his silence. Not on Twitter, but by returning to the PBS studio for a follow-up with Karen Delaney. The energy was different this time. The audience wasn't shocked. They were expectant, almost bracing. Karen, calmer but visibly aware of the moment, leaned in. "Mr. President," she began, "since our last interview, the country has been in uproar. Former President Trump has denied your claims, attacked you personally, and yet the public reaction has been overwhelming. Why did you choose now, after all these years, to speak up?" Obama folded his hands, leaning forward slightly, voice steady, like a teacher addressing a class. "Because silence is dangerous. For a long time, I believed Americans could separate fact from fiction on their own. I thought the truth didn't need my voice. But watching division grow, watching lies spread faster than facts, I realized silence was becoming complicity." The audience murmured in agreement. Karen pressed, "So this is bigger than Trump?" Obama nodded. "Much bigger. Trump is one man. The problem is, what happens if we allow one man's self-interest to override the good of the nation? If we excuse it, if we shrug and say that's just politics, then we lower the bar for everyone who comes after him. And if that happens, America won't recognize itself 10 years from now." The words landed heavy. The audience leaned in, absorbing every syllable. From the second row, a woman timidly raised her hand. Karen noticed and nodded. Breaking protocol, she let her speak. "My son's in the Army," the woman said, her voice trembling. "When you talk about classified information being leaked, are you saying my child could have been put in danger?" Obama looked at her directly, face solemn. "I won't sugarcoat it. Yes, not just your son. Every soldier, every citizen. When leaders treat secrets like cocktail chatter, they gamble with lives." The woman covered her mouth, eyes watering. Others around her nodded gravely. Karen's voice softened. "What do you say to Americans who feel hopeless hearing this?" Obama's reply was calm but firm. "Hope doesn't come from pretending problems don't exist. It comes from facing them and deciding we're better than this. America has survived wars, depressions, divisions. We survive because ordinary people hold leaders accountable." Applause rippled, steady, like a heartbeat. Obama's tone carried the rhythm of a sermon. Democracy isn't fragile because of one bad leader. It's fragile when citizens stop caring, when they give up, when they trade truth for convenience. That's the real danger, and that's the choice in front of us now. The camera zoomed in on his face, gravity etched in his eyes. Karen asked, "Do you think Donald Trump understands that choice?" Obama gave a faint smile, tinged with sadness. "Donald Trump understands only one choice. What benefits him? That's the truth," Obama said. "But this isn't about him anymore. It's about us." The audience erupted, louder and more urgent this time. Across the country, people felt the words settle deeply. In Charlotte, a grandmother leaned toward her granddaughter on the couch and whispered, "That's what leadership looks like." In Phoenix, a group of college students sat in stunned silence until one finally said, "That's the first time politics has ever made sense to me." Obama ended with a message replayed endlessly in the days that followed. We don't fix our country by shouting louder. We fix it by listening harder. We don't move forward by clinging to lies. We move forward by facing the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. That's the only way democracy survives. The studio went still, then applause rose like a wave. Raw, grateful, unforced. People stood, clapping not for performance, but because they needed to. Karen's voice cracked as she closed. "Mr. President, thank you." Obama leaned back, calm as ever, as though the storm raging outside couldn't touch him. But the story wasn't finished. The world was waiting to see how this clash between two former presidents would play out. By Monday morning, the country felt shaken, as though it had lived through a political earthquake. Cable news framed it as the showdown no one expected. Social media still buzzed with clips, memes, and quotes. But what lingered wasn't just the shock of Obama's revelations. It was the clarity of his moral message. Conversations that once avoided politics now confronted it directly. In a Boise coffee shop, two men who usually argued about sports sat quietly watching Obama's follow-up interview on TV. One finally muttered, "I don't even like the guy's politics, but last night, he spoke like a leader." In San Antonio, a teacher began class with, "You all saw what happened this weekend. Let's talk about it. Why does truth matter in leadership?" Dozens of hands shot up. Even faith leaders weighed in. In Indianapolis, a pastor told his congregation, "No, man is greater than the truth. Power without accountability is corruption. And when someone reminds us of that, whether we agree with their politics or not, we should listen." Meanwhile, Trump's attempts to wrestle back control kept backfiring. His Mar-a-Lago press event was mocked. His late-night posts still circulated, as proof of desperation. Even allies grew uneasy. One conservative radio host admitted reluctantly, "I'll be honest, folks, Obama's words landed. Trump's response, not his finest hour." The narrative was set. Obama hadn't just dropped secrets. He framed them as a choice between truth and chaos. And the contrast was impossible to ignore. For many Americans, it felt less like a political fight and more like a reminder of what leadership should sound like. Calm, steady, clear, even when the truths hurt. In Cleveland, a grandfather sat on the porch with his grandson, scrolling headlines on his tablet. "Grandpa?" the boy asked. "Why is everyone talking about Obama and Trump again?" The old man smiled faintly. "Because one man showed us what it means to lead, and the other showed us what it means to lose control." That was the story millions carried into workplaces, schools, and homes. Not Trump's all-caps meltdowns, but Obama's warning. Democracy doesn't run on loyalty to one man. It runs on loyalty to the truth. By Tuesday, analysts were already calling it the weekend that shifted American politics. But beyond the pundits and headlines, it did more than spark headlines. It forced people to ask hard questions. Who do we trust? What do we demand from our leaders? And most importantly, are we willing to stand up for the truth, even when it's not easy? For Obama, that interview wasn't about scoring points. It was about planting a seed, a reminder that silence is dangerous, that complacency is complicity, and that democracy only survives when ordinary people care enough to protect it. And that brings it back to you, the viewer. Leadership doesn't just come from the Oval Office. It comes from every kitchen table conversation, every classroom debate, and every vote cast with conviction. It comes from the willingness to say, "We deserve better. We demand better." So as history begins to write this chapter, ask yourself, when you look back on this moment, will you be able to say you stood on the side of truth? Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need 30 posts at 2 in the morning. The truth speaks once, calmly, and it echoes forever. If that message resonates with you, don't let it end here. Share this story. Talk about it. Hold it close. And if you want more stories that cut through the noise and remind us of what really matters, make sure to subscribe, because this conversation isn't ending. It's only just beginning.